Hello and welcome back. And are you a content creator? Do you make videos for a living? Are you a photographer, a videographer? Do you work in post? Maybe you're on the other side of the world, hanging off a cliff face with a DJI in hand, creating banger content. And you've looked at the cost of cloud services and gone, bloody hell. If that sounds like you, well, you're in luck, because in today's video, I'm going to go through 5 incredibly important things before you spend a penny on a network attached storage solution for your content creation needs. Keep in mind throughout the course of this, I'm also going to sprinkle lots of smaller tips throughout the whole thing. But before we go any further, a word from today's sponsor, UGREEN. Now, I'm going to be straight with you. The idea of today's video has been bouncing around on my to-do list for the better part of 5 or 6 months. This video was always going to be made. So when UGREEN reached out to sponsor one of my videos, it was 2 birds, 1 stone. Although this video is going to be about general NAS, it's worth highlighting that their 8-bay, the DXP8800, is still among my top 5 NAS solutions for video editors that are looking at storage, looking at performance, looking at an all-rounder. And between the 8th and the 11th of July 2025, they're going to be doing a 20% discount off of all of their network attached storage solutions. Hope you can see it there on screen. Again, this video is about general network attached storage tips, hints for content creators. But right now, if you've heard good things about UGREEN and if you've already kind of put a line under them in terms of what you are looking at buying, why not take advantage of a big discount now and get the cheapest possible price you can for a UGREEN NAS. This first one seems really obvious, but take my word for it, too many people forget to factor this in. Plan ahead for your storage. If you're going to go to the trouble of buying a local storage system in order to store days, weeks, months, years of raw footage, both for long-term archiving and day-to-day editing, plan ahead. That doesn't just apply, by the way, to just buying massive hard drives. You might be looking at this device and thinking, I don't need that level of storage. Why would I not just buy a cheeky little 4-bay and then buy fewer drives like this one, a 24 TB drive, stick 4 of those in there. That's a massive amount of storage. What on earth's the problem with that? And although that's not terrible, I would say that it's not a great solution for everyone. Let me explain. Number one, 24 TB drive like this, that means you're going to need to buy 2 of these. Why do you need to buy 2? Because this one might break and you might have to use something called RAID to ensure that you've got failover, you've got a safety net. Yes, you're backing it up elsewhere, but the time it will take to reinstate a backup, depending on where it is, and we're more on that later on, keep in mind that a big drive like this, you have to buy multiple of them. Now, that is a lot of storage, but you are still then effectively increasing the price per terabyte that you're going to pay. On top of that, with a 4-bay solution like this, say you wanted to buy a giant 24 TB hard drive like this, and you wanted to populate it with those. You're only going to get 3 drives of capacity because one of those is going to be your RAID failover there. Whereas in an 8-bay solution like this one, not only can you, if you choose to, get the same 4 hard drives and populate it and get the same amount of storage capacity and redundancy, but moreover, you can add more drives later. And that's the thing that a lot of users don't factor in when they buy a large scale storage solution. As the drives fill up, you run out of space, and then suddenly this big lovely metal box becomes a very low glass ceiling. So buying a larger box with more bays can certainly help you in terms of scalability down the line easily. And on top of that, one of the things about RAID that a lot of users outside of storage don't know is when you have multiple drives inside in a RAID environment, that is a large block storage pool there, the more drives you have, depending on the RAID configuration you choose to use, you will have the drive being read and written to at the same time. So the more drives you have, the higher the performance, which is really key for those that are looking at going for larger scale hard drives, which tend to have a high capacity but low performance. So buying a larger box not only allows you that scalability over time to add more storage, but on top of that allows for higher performance as the drives are all being read and written to simultaneously. And notwithstanding that, if you choose to, you can have 1, 2, and even 3 disk failover in some cases to allow even more safety nets. And if you're worried about the cost, just keep in mind that yes, you could populate this with 24 TB drives, but more often than not, if you want to achieve a certain capacity, say 40 terabytes, you could buy 3 24 TB drives in order to get close to that, achieving 48 terabytes there with one drive of failover. But what if you populated a device like this with 8 and 10 TB drives, which are lower in price? You can achieve then the same storage capacity at either the same or often lower price point, but with the added benefit, as mentioned, of multiple drives being read and written from. So again, factor in scalability and factor in more bays than you think you're going to need. Now this one may seem a little counterintuitive, but we've got to talk about performance there on the rear. A lot of NAS systems these days are starting to arrive rather affordably with something called 10 gigabit Ethernet or 10 GBE. This allows for 10 times the performance of the majority of domestic network connections. That is, not the connection outside of your home or office with the internet, but the local area network, the circle that you perhaps and your colleagues are within. And a lot of systems, including this one, allow you to directly connect via 10 GBE to your NAS system and then edit directly on the NAS, opening up 1000 megabytes per second, 2000 megabytes per second, or 2 gigabytes per second performance there if you have multiple connections bonded together. And as long as you upgrade your PC or Mac system with a 10 gig upgrade card or perhaps a 10 gig over Thunderbolt adapter, you can achieve 1000 megabytes per second. But the point I'm making is, do you need that? You might be a photo editor, you might be a 1080p or low-level video editor rather than 4K or 8K. There is a good chance that you will be upgrading for nothing, and if anything, it's going to cost you more money than you know. 10 GBE gets hot, it consumes power, and it can slow down your client system. Again, depending on the age of the hardware you're using, if you use a Thunderbolt to 10G adapter, not only do these things get hot because they're drawing so much power, they can actually affect the graphical or GPU performance of your host system. So what I'm saying is, check if you need 10 GBE, because the majority of NAS released in 2025, they don't have by default 10 GBE, but almost all of them arrive with default of 2.5 gigabit Ethernet or 2.5 GBE. And you can pick up adapters like this one that connect via USB for as little as $15 to $20 that will allow for 2.5 or 250 to 280 megabytes per second. Still a quarter or so of 10 GBE, but this might well be enough. These don't get as hot. These don't draw from your graphics card, your GPU and your CPU. They consume very little power, are way more power efficient than 10 GBE, and you can bind multiple together. It's not going to be for everyone, and chances are you're watching this going, no, I'd rather have 10 GBE and open up the bandwidth. But just know that 10 GBE, although it gives you that performance, it doesn't necessarily apply as useful to everyone. Remember earlier when I said about having multiple hard drives increases the performance? Well, there is kind of a glass ceiling on that too. Hard drives are just flat out slower than SSDs, you probably knew that. But when I talked about adding multiple drives, the first drive, let's say it's 200 megabytes per second, when you add the next drive, the best performance increase you can get is probably going to be between 80 to around 120 megabytes per second increase. And that will go with each drive, depending on the RAID configuration pool you choose to use. Now, obviously, depending on the connection that you've established with the NAS, that might not be a problem. But if you've already opened up multiple 10 gig connections or just high performance connections overall, then chances are these drives will never be able to saturate that connection. So yes, SSDs are the answer. However, don't just assume that you should go and get a NAS fully populated with SSDs. Doing so is great, but it's going to be more expensive, and although 4TB SSDs have gone down to about $200 now. It's still not as cost-effective price per terabyte wise as hard drives. So what's the answer? Well, nice and simple, it's hybrid storage. Hybrid storage is when you have one large storage pool comprising of your hard drives for your archive and another storage area built into the base of the system with SSDs. The majority of modern NAS devices, not just UGREENs, but modern NAS devices in general, arrive with both hard drives and SSD bays. And that allows you to create an area of storage where you need high performance and another area of storage where you need high capacity. Don't put all your eggs in one hard drive or SSD basket. Leverage the performance versus price benefits of either platform and merge them into one storage system where the most prioritized data is being accessed off the SSDs and then synchronized and backed up onto the legacy hard drives organically and automatically in the background. Now, I was this close to talking about backups in huge, boring detail because they are incredibly important. If you don't have a backup in place, what is wrong with you right now? How much is your data actually worth to you? But before I get on to the next point, real quick, regardless of the NAS system you choose to use, regardless of the NAS brand you choose to use, make sure you have a multi-tiered backup strategy in place. Have it so that the system not only backs up onto an external USB drive, so there you go, there's one copy. Synchronize it with a Google Cloud service, synchronize it with any of the cloud services that you actually trust, and then have an off-site backup, 2 backups now. From there, get another NAS in the local area network and back up to that remotely out of hours during the night when everyone's asleep. There's your 3rd backup. Ultimately, having a multi-tiered backup situation in place is important, but that's not the point that I want to make in this section of the video. The point I want to make is this. What about data recovery? Let's face it, even if you have all of this myriad of backup in place, there's every possibility that you created data now that wasn't backed up because you couldn't create a synchronized backup. You couldn't have it live because it would have slowed down the network, because it would have slowed down the client system. For one reason or another, everyone's human, you don't have an immediate backup and you need to recover your data. Here's a few points. Number 1, if you buy drives and you buy Seagate drives, all Seagate IronWolf drives arrive with 3 years of recovery services built in. We have messed these drives up before and Seagate were able to retrieve our data. Obviously, if you've got multiple drives in a RAID array, that could be problematic, but it doesn't mean the drive data cannot be retrieved. Data recovery can cost tens of thousands of dollars. So rather than wait until something goes wrong, go for drives like these that arrive with free data recovery services, forensic level I might add, you ship the drive off included with them. Likewise, whether it is that you're trying to recover the data on an M.2 NVMe that's inside your NAS system, or one of your backup operations was onto an SSD, an external USB SSD like these, be aware that data recovery on SSDs is way harder. Recovering data from hard drives is way easier because of the platter technology inside even modern large capacity hard drives. They use helium to seal the casing. They use new energy assisted and heat assisted recording techniques, but it's still platter technology, not the NAND and electrically dedicated services of SSD. It is less mechanical and recovery on these is way harder. So if you're going to have multi-tiered backups, make sure that SSDs do not form a vital stage in that operation. Yes, it will mean faster backups over time and they may be dead convenient, but just know data recovery from these is way harder than data recovery from those. Do you know there's not a month that goes by on NAS Compare's website, on the NAS Compare's YouTube comment section, on our free advice section, not a month has ever gone by without someone messaging me or Eddie and saying, I bought the NAS that was in your video. It's really noisy. You didn't say it was noisy. I say the noise on these devices all the time. I've done a whole series on noise on these. And the reason I need to bring it up right now is I'm just sick of repeating it, but it needs to be repeated, unfortunately. And that is, these systems, if you populate them with big, high-performance hard drives, my God, they're noisy. The bigger the device, the noisier it gets. Not just because there's multiple drives, and by the way that makes a difference, but the larger systems generally have better internal hardware that requires better cooling 24/7. The result is they're generally metal through and through, which does an incredible job of amplifying the noise of these drives. And larger drives have more platters inside. Those platters, the more there are, and the more the arm or the actuator inside has to read, the result is they can make a hell of a lot of noise that vibrates all the way through these systems. So, if you're going to use a NAS system in your content creator environment, be aware, if you're in close proximity, these things make a bloody racket. Now, are there ways to dampen or reduce that noise? Sure thing, but it depends on how much money you're prepared to spend. So for example, with mechanical hard drives like this, by far the most cost effective, although not the most enjoyable or aesthetically pleasing, is to use foam. Just use large sheets of foam that you can dot around the device to dampen some of the noise coming through, removing some of the ambient noise, some of the just general vibrations outside of where the system is deployed. But keep in mind, you still need to leave an area of air around the system, because if you try to pack this in too close, this system's going to get hot, which is going to make the fans ramp up, which then is going to mean it's going to work harder, which defeats the object of the thing. Now, the next cost-effective option, but again, you may void your warranty depending on how you do this, is to use Velcro strips. I've done a whole dedicated video about this, linked below. And what you can do is apply Velcro strips around drive casing, slot these inside the system, and these can basically nullify the vibration running through the drive into that chassis. Now, again, it's not for everyone and it may void your warranty, so only do this if you're really comfortable with that. But this can be a very cost-effective way to reduce drive vibration. Now, if the noise issue isn't related to the drive media, because maybe you're using SSDs, then in that case, it's the fans. Now you can set fans to varying degrees of operation automatically. Some NAS devices have scheduled fan operations. Some of them allow you to control it and change the parameters. You can even change scheduled on and off for a system in case you're worried about the system making noise at night or for security purposes, and then create air gaps if you choose. But for me, recommended time and time again, is Noctua fans. The majority of NAS systems use very, very similar fans to standard PCs. And what you can choose to do is replace the fan inside your NAS system with a Noctua fan. These are industry well regarded. They are used by content creators, used by gamers, esports users. These are fans designed for low noise operation. Make sure you get the right fan pins, make sure you get the right fan size, and research in advance. But trust me, when it comes to reduced NAS noise, they are one of the best options to go for if it's the NAS itself that's making the racket and not the drives. Now, these have just been the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more I can tell you. Link to the description of other videos we've done on this subject, but I'll say right now, make sure that if you create accounts for your NAS system, make sure every single device has its own user account, and make sure those accounts can only access some of the system. Do not create one all-powerful user that you use to edit on your NAS. It's madness and it's insecure in the extreme. On top of that, when you set the device up, make sure you enable your firewall. Make sure to have snapshots in place. Make sure when you set up the device for any kind of remote access protocol to use ones you trust. If in doubt, and you don't want to use the remote access relay service from UGREEN, from TerraMaster, from Synology QNAP, whatever, the one I recommend is TailScale. It's completely free. You can install it on the system quickly, and it allows you completely anonymized access from select points. So rather than a VPN, which creates a mysterious wall for you to pass in and out of with your system, TailScale allows you to have a doorway on your MacBook, a doorway on your NAS, and complete anonymity point to point between those two, which is really, really key. As mentioned, listed below are other videos I've covered on this that cover a lot more of the pedestrian factors, as well as walkthroughs and guides for setting up your NAS for video editing and content creation a great deal more easily. I just wanted to talk on some of the hot points that people seem to overlook, not just on my videos in the past, but others too. Thanks again to UGREEN for sponsoring today's video. Again, I would have made it if you'd sponsored us or not, so I guess money for old rope, we win. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.